Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, Aria Juliet. How are you this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good, thinking about the show today. I find myself getting a little bummed about the present, the way politics is going on. And then I start thinking about all the good stuff.
Yeah,
But yeah, Gary Hooser, that's my introduction. Former state senator, former member of Kauai County Council, present grandpa, live on Kauai, been in business, did all kinds of stuff. And nobody's paying me to be here like you. No one's paying us. And we don't represent any organizations, even though we're both co founders of the Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action, a fabulous nonprofit organization. But we're not here working for them today uh, or anybody else.
that's right. Yeah, Aria Juliet Castillo, happy to be here. Reclaiming Democracy Program Director for HAPA, but here today on my own volition. Also work for a couple candidates and have been volunteering a lot on a couple more candidate campaigns this year. I just couldn't help myself. There are so many incredible people running. Maybe we can just start there and a little positive news. Just thinking about in 2 weeks when we get the election results, even the fact that there are, a list, a solid list of candidates that have pledged not to accept corporate donations, whether that's through the Our Hawaii Pledge or they're certified Moho'aina candidates that have said that they subscribe to these certain principles. One of them is not taking corporate donations. Others have just stated it outright. Shout out to Christy McPherson, who's challenging Senator Donna Mercado
So I'm
Kim.
not sure if you're still talking
She was,
or not.
oh, sorry, I don't know what's going on.
Go ahead.
Did you hear me at all?
I hear you now. I hear you now.
Okay, I was talking about Senator Donna Mercado Kim and her challenger, Christy McPherson. She was featured today on Civil Beat. Awesome article. Wish it would have come out a couple days sooner. All of these late coverages of Civil Beat is a little bit frustrating, but she'll get some voters. And shout out to her. She's not taking any corporate money.
Yeah, I read that article myself, and mahalo to Civil Beat for they're doing so much. They really do cover deeply policy and politics in Hawaii, and sometimes I wish they'd be sooner or do more, but I'm really glad they're there because there's no paywalls and it's free.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, that race is an interesting race. Christy McPherson kind of came in under the radar. I think she's been knocking on doors for about a year.
Yeah.
I served with Donna Senator Kim for 8 years and enjoyed working with her. She's a formidable force. There's no question about that. Uh, and Firstly, I'd like to see new energy. And there's lots of ways to serve, just like myself. I think, well, maybe I should run. Well, no, maybe I should keep space open for other younger people to run. And I can still serve as a volunteer, still serve on boards and commissions and that kind of thing. But yeah, Christy McPherson, uh, Kahi Picaro is running a hard, tough race. I hear he's out knocking on doors. You're helping him, I understand.
Yes, I am. Yeah,
Uh,
he's been knocking on doors since February. I think circled the district at least twice and making way around again. It's tough out there. It's really, really hard to go against a 16-year incumbent who has all the donations from all corporate lobbyists, different development interests, big tobacco, big pharma, big ag. And it's been really interesting the last few weeks to see his campaign, Rep. Hashem's campaign, come out and speak about the issues that Kahi has been campaigning on. He's an environmentalist. Hashem is saying that he's an environmentalist, even though some of his voting records and comments in hearings would suggest otherwise. Even though he's supported, good funding for environmental protection projects, the overall, disposition that landowners and development industry has a bigger priority and say in, for example, water rights than environmental protection, environmental organizations. That says a lot.
It
He
does.
also takes, a lot of corporate donations, and he's campaigning on the fact that he voted for 2471, which every single lawmaker except for one did. So
The 2471, that's the bill that seeks to ban corporate super PAC donations.
yes.
And I have to say, my core subject matter background is environmental protection, and it's evolved over the years to social economic justice issues, energy, self-sufficiency. But today, as we sit here today, the number one issue uh, is money in politics, the corporate, the corrupting influence of big money in politics. And I'm unable to support any candidate who's unwilling to say that, who's unwilling to say, Gary, I agree with you that we should take concrete steps to get rid of that money. We should support publicly funded elections. We should pass increased campaign spending reform. And I don't want super PACs spending their money on me. And, our candidates and incumbents need to do that. They need to stand up and say that out loud. And the candidates that we've mentioned so far have been willing to say that, to say they don't support big money in politics, and we need more to say that. Super PACs. We're going to talk about PRP and a Better Tomorrow, for a Better Tomorrow, and others in a little bit, but they dump in millions of dollars buying elections, and we need our candidates to stand up and say enough already. Candidates like Nadia Elves, who we both know Nadia well. She's just an incredible human being. She's endorsed by our Hawaii, and she said clearly, "I don't want big corporate money. I don't want it, and we need to support campaign spending reform." And so we need more candidates like that. We got them. That's the good news is they're running. Tina Holt, Christina Holt, on the Big Island, running for state house. She's get stronger voices than Tina's. She does her homework. She speaks truth to power, and she's running on the Big Island for the House seat. There's a few of them out there.
So let's get into the big news of the weekend. On Friday we got some news drop that there was a grand jury, hearing, and some federal indictments were dropped on some big
Mm-hmm.
names. Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke, former state representative Ryan Yamane, and then 3 other individuals, one of whom, let me try and find the name so I can cite it correctly.
One of whom is staff at the Ways and Means Committee of the Senate.
Yes.
The Senate Ways and Means Committee is the most powerful committee in the entire state legislature. That's who manages the money from the state Senate's perspective. And this individual is a staff member. I want to back up just a second when you look at those names. Indictments are not guilty verdicts. Everyone we're talking about here is innocent till they're proven guilty. It's my understanding that an indictment means the grand jury felt there was enough evidence from what they've heard to send it to trial. And it doesn't mean they're guilty. And I've also had attorneys call me and say, Gary, remember that sometimes indictments are used as tools to hurt and punish people. The Trump administration has done that. But needless to say, the other thing is where there's smoke, there's fire. And there's definitely a lot of smoke with this. Yes. And this is above and beyond Choi, the guy that gave money to Senator English and Representative Cullen. This is about some guy who's hiding out in the Philippines now, dealing with kidney association or something, and COVID using COVID money abuse. But it's our legislative leaders got to stand up and say enough already. You
Yeah.
know,
So, Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke was indicted on criminal conspiracy to commit bribery, falsifying election documents. She was her bail was set to $80,000, and she posted bail. Ryan Yamane, who was at the time of the incident was a House representative and the chair of the Human Health Services Committee. He was recently working at the Department of Human Services and stepped down in May after he was subpoenaed to testify, and the governor encouraged him to step down. I have questions whether the governor had like knowledge of like what was coming or like what he did when he did indicate that he was stepping down. So that's interesting to know. Ford Fujigami, Department of Transportation Airports Administrator. This person worked at the DOT for a long time. And then he worked as Governor Ige's chief of staff, I believe. And then he worked at the Department of Transportation again. And then in January of 2022, when this whole stuff kind of started, he went to go work for the Ways and Means Committee, and then now is back at the Department of Transportation. So I find that quite fascinating. His bail was set to $80,000. He was also indicted on criminal conspiracy to commit bribery, false statements, and obstruction of justice. And then Leo Asuncion Jr., who used to work who was chair of the Public Utilities Commission, was indicted on falsifying candidate committee reports, false statements, and obstruction of justice. His bail was set to $80,000 as well.
and the daughter was.
It doesn't look like the daughter who was at the dinner with Sylvia Luke was indicted for anything as of yet.
Okay. Yeah, and it's again, everyone's innocent until proven guilty. But this whole thing, the whole past few years of it's just thrown a dark cloud over
Yeah.
policy and politics in our government. It is like disgusting. And
Yeah.
I'm waiting for, I'll say it out loud, Senator Kochi and the Speaker Nakamura to stand up and say, listen, this is disgusting. We need to pass the laws and fund the Ethics Commission and fund the Campaign Spending Commission and fund our auditors properly and get to the bottom of this stuff, that it's not acceptable at all. And unfortunately, I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing silence. And I know, again, they have to be proven guilty, but clearly there's some stuff going on.
Yeah. So I just want to back up a little bit for viewers for context. This started in 2018 when the feds began to investigate a tip from Maui County Council for a wastewater company that had been receiving millions in no-bid contracts. That was Milton Choi's company that was getting millions of bids and millions in no-bid contracts. This wasn't just happening on Maui County. This also, he had contracts with wastewater stuff on Kauai as well, and I think on Oahu. And it's hard to say that okay, they had no big contracts, but there's very specific companies. This deals with wastewater treatment or whatever. So it's hard to say, like, is there another company that has the capacity, that has the equipment, that has the knowledge to handle this? Like, is it conspiracy, or is it just this is the only company that can do this work? We've heard that a lot in other arguments about pay to play and the contract process or whatever. So this started back in 2018. And if you look at campaign spending reports, Milton Choi and this other guy, Toby Salitum, were giving thousands of dollars to many different elected officials. And he would just come to, different fundraisers and give them money. And that's how relationships would start. They would meet, they'd give them $500 here, and then maybe another 1,000 here. And that's how relationships start to build. Okay. And that is all legal, above the table. This is how this process worked, right? In 2021, Senator English was arrested for taking $18,000 in bribes from Milton Choi. And then in October, Ty Cullen was arrested for accepting bribes in form of cash and poker chips, and he started working with the feds. Sometime in January of 2022, Ty Cullen met with Sylvia Luke, Toby Solitam, his stepdaughter Kristen Pay, and this is the alleged video recording of, you know, the transaction where she got two $5,000 checks and met with Solitam about COVID testing contracts through the National Kidney Foundation. And this contracts, they profited like $7 million. And according to the indictments, Solitam was like out of money because their company had like overpaid for things or like overpromised or overordered or something, and they needed to get that money back. So they wanted to get more COVID funding to fund these testing. So reminding people, this is in January of 2022, right? So this is kind of at the tail end of when COVID was happening, like still an issue, but you know, we're kind of re-entering back into society. So like I think the rapid COVID testing at the airport and everything was being used very frequently. And you know, they wanted to make sure that tourism was coming back into play and that we're being ready to integrate back into society. So I think that's why they were able to kind of press this into something, some importance. So that is the kind of transaction that we're dealing with in 2022. We don't know if this, you know, this whole thing also started with like, there was a reporting about $35,000. None of the indictments that came out on Friday had any mention of $35,000 in a paper bag or not on a recording. So that is a question that is still very much up in the air. Did that happen? Who was that? If that wasn't any of these people, are they still investigating that in a different capacity?
I should point out campaign donations up to a certain limit are legal. And so a person could go to a legislator, senator, or representative and say, you know, I'd like to support you. I'd like to give you 2,000 or 4,000 or 6,000 if they're running for lieutenant governor or governor. And that is not illegal. To offer a candidate money it's not illegal. And there's a lot of gray area, and it kills me when some people I know in the past that brag about working in the gray area. Well, it's not illegal, Hoosier, you know, it's okay to do this. But it stinks, you know, because what they'll do is they'll say, you know, I can help you, but I need help passing this bill also. And the bill is good for society, it's good for our community, and I can help you be whatever you want to be and help you raise money. And that's campaign money, it's not cash money. And technically it's legal. It's a bribe when someone is paid something in return for something. If you pass this bill, I'll give you X number of dollars, or I'll give you X number of dollars in return for you introducing this. But you know, I've heard reports of $70,000 or something. You know, a promise of 70,000 in the future, and it's unclear to me if the person was saying, "I'll help you raise 70,000 in campaign contributions," or whether that person's promising $70,000 in cash.
So my read of it was that Toby Solitam said that they would help raise 70,000 total. He thought he could get that, with 35,000 coming, or 30,000 or something like that coming, you know, quickly next week. And you know, if we rewind our memory back into, I think, 2024, when the news first broke about $35,000, people pointed out that Sylvia Luke had a fundraiser in that time frame that raised about $33,000, and she said that was a pure coincidence. So me putting two and two together, they had this meeting. He promised that he would help her with her fundraiser. Toby Solitam invites his friends that he's been mixing and mingling with for the past 20 years in politics. Let's all go to this fundraiser to support Sylvia Luke. That kind of adds up to me, and that's, in my opinion, seems legal. depending on what was actually discussed and promised at the meeting. If he said, okay, I run COVID testing and, we're going to need more money to do COVID testing, and I'll look into it. We'll see what happens. I don't,
Yeah, that's why we need to support candidates who are willing to run grassroots campaigns. And you can do that in Hawaii and win. We need to support candidates who support publicly funded elections. A publicly funded election means the candidate agrees not to spend more than a certain amount of money and not to raise more than a certain amount of money. And in return for that, the state provides help. And that creates a level playing field. So we fortunate, again, we have candidates running today, qualified, credible candidates running good campaigns who have said, no, we don't want to live in the world that's being portrayed by these indictments. We don't want to go to those cocktail parties to raise $35,000 from people who expect us to do all their work. We want to work for the people. And it's just, we have the power collectively, and I want to keep coming back to this because there are good people out there. And GaryHooser.blog, I've listed a list of candidates statewide that I like personally, that I've talked to my friends, I've looked at their websites, I've researched them, and basically said, if I lived in the district, this is who I'd vote for. And if you go to GaryHooser.blog and scroll through, you'll see my list. And I'm happy to say and proud to say that not one of those persons showed up on the PRP Super PAC list. Not one. And I'll qualify that to say just because someone's on the Super PAC list doesn't mean they're crooks. Doesn't mean they've promised to give their soul to God or to PRP. But it does mean that Pacific Resource Partnership and For Better Tomorrow, their Super PAC, expects them to support their development agenda, their big money, big development agenda. And I'm happy that not one person that I'm supporting supports that agenda. GaryHooser.com is my website. GaryHooser.blog is the blog. If you go to GaryHooser.com, you can sign up for my email. And again, I'm doing this all by myself. I don't get paid. I don't have staff. But I have 30 some years of experience I'd like to share. But it's just beyond me how we can get. And I wrote two things. I'll talk about this real quick, or you bear with me. So I wrote buying influence by any other name is still buying influence. And I talked about the Super PAC. They've spent already over $2 million in just a couple of weeks, $2 million on council races on the islands, on the mayor's race, on the LG race. And basically that buys influence, because you're going to call them back. You've got influence. Anybody with that much money is going to have influence. And then this indictment thing broke about the $35,000 where people, and I wrote corruption by any other name is still corruption. So I believe they're both equally bad. And I'm asking candidates to stand up and to say that out loud if they want support from the grassroots community.
Going back to the indictment and the things that Lieutenant Governor Luke is in trouble for, the falsifying campaign spending records. She did not record the $10,000 she received from Toby Solitum and pay, and she tried to refund it in March. So she thought that she didn't have to record it. Once you deposit something in your bank account, even if you return it before the reporting period, you still have to record that. So she made that mistake. We don't know if that was intentional, unintentional. We don't know if, her treasurer, Leo, was the one that made the decision not to report it. But she didn't. What was really odd to me was she didn't tell other people, like, hey, this guy is, by the way, I had this meeting connected to Cullen, you should return this money. She did make that statement about English and Cullen and Milton Choi, but not from Solitum. We hadn't really heard his name until this, like, a couple months ago. So I thought that was pretty fascinating that she hadn't said that. And I think that's another like sticking point of why she's in trouble for falsifying the records, and then her campaign treasurer is getting dragged in this as well. Um, to talk a little bit about the process of returning money, Toby Salidum gave hundreds of thousands of dollars to candidates, and I dug into it a little bit. I'm happy to report our Senator Kochi did return the money that he was given. Senator Chang returned the money that he was given. Representative Lowen returned the money. So if you want to look at campaign spending reports, look under expenditures. It will say probably an escheat to Campaign Spending Commission, and it's a return of the funds. But since they can't really refund it directly to the person, it goes into the Campaign Spending Commission coffers that support publicly funded elections.
Yeah, if people have a moment, I encourage them to dive into those campaign spending reports and the electioneering reports that the super PACs have to provide. And I know it's a lot of work, and which is why I've come back just this morning actually to the need of more oversight. We need more auditors, for the want of a better way to say it. Again, more empowerment of the Ethics Commission and Campaign Spending Commission. We can't stop, and we shouldn't stop, and it's impossible to stop building roads, bridges, highways, airports, and funding important government services. But the more I hear about it, the more I hear and understand that there's waste, fraud, and abuse. We can't say, okay, we're not going to build any more roads. We got to keep doing that, but we have to look at it closer. And the mayors are at the top of the food chain, and they're responsible, but they don't have the expertise or the time to wade into the books to figure out if these contracts are done properly. And so auditors, each county has an independent auditor except Kauai. Kauai charter says we're supposed to have one, but the Kauai Council hasn't filled that position in over 10 years. I thought it was interesting reading about Choi. The news broke on Maui first. That's where it all started. And Mayor Victorino immediately called for an audit. He wanted to be clear. He wanted to just clear everything up right away, that there's no funny business on his part, and call for an audit of all the contracts Maui County did with Choi. And so that should be done in every county, in my opinion. It doesn't matter if they say they followed the procurement process. It needs to be looked at closely. And the same with the campaign spending reports. There are so much data, so many candidates. It's impossible or unrealistic to expect the Campaign Spending Commission to review every single report every time. They wait for red flags, wait for complaints, wait for secret phone calls, and then they do the investigation. But we need to staff up these oversight offices and get them looking closely, so the people can have confidence that the money is being spent wisely and not being wasted or used going in the pockets of not just politicians, but people behind the counter sometimes at these public agencies also.
Yeah, staff members of the committees.
Yeah, and people that work in the solid waste areas of the counties and water departments and that kind of thing. If you look at the Choi history. One thing that we talked about, the campaign spending is legal, right? Donations are legal, but there are limitations, and you know more about this than I do. So, a corporation cannot give money to a campaign. Is that correct?
They can. It's legal. They have to abide by campaign spending limits. If they give over $500, they have to register as a non-candidate committee with the Campaign Spending Commission. So most corporations, big corporations like Charter Communications, has a PAC that they have specific fund for, and then they donate to candidates $500, $1,000, $2,000, and that's how they fund and support the candidates that they
Got it.
choose.
Got it. And again, this is not. It's tough because I'm critical and disgusted of the system and what's going on, and want to be careful about personalizing that with people. But it's hard not to, right? Because someone's in charge of these organizations. Someone's making the decision. The super PACs, for a better tomorrow, there's someone there saying, let's spend $2 million. Or let's take out Ben Cayetano, let's smear his name, which they did,
Yeah.
and he took him to court and won. But
let's talk about PRP, but one last thing about Sylvia Luke,
sure,
just to give us context, move into the next part. Sylvia Luke was not backed by PRP, and she was not running with Governor Green, or Lieutenant Governor at the time, Governor Green. They were not on the same ticket. They were not running mates until August, right? Governor Green was supported by PRP. Ikaika Anderson was their choice in candidate for lieutenant governor. So they were spending money on Ikaika Anderson to be in line, and they were spending money against Sylvia Luke to get the job. They were got a number of negative campaigns actually against Sylvia Luke, trying to tie her to other corruption and nefarious activity, and that didn't work for them. So a lot of people have pointed that out, and I just want people to understand that there's more layers at play in this, and they're one of the players in the larger scheme of things. But what first of all, what is PRP? I've had that question come up a lot. People still do not know to this day what is PRP.
I agree. People don't know, and it's often saying, "Well, it's a carpenters union." A lot of people. That's the first thing I know. This is a carpenters union, and yes, the carpenters union funds the super PAC and our partners in PRP. That's public. Yes.
I've actually heard that the contractors who hire the carpenters fund PRP.
Well, yes, that's what I figured out too. So it's worse than that. Okay, all right, it's worse than that. These are publicly stated on the website. PRP says they're carpenters union and 250, I believe, general contractors. Okay, so those general contractors do public works projects. The biggest one is a rail, but airports, highways, bridges, rail systems, and housing and that kind of thing. But a lot of their money to the contractors get it from government contracts. Mm-hmm. Then the contractors hire carpenters, and then the carpenters give them back money to PRP for the super PAC. So the next thing I'm writing is money laundering by any other name is still money laundering. Or I should say false name donor. So the money actually is coming from the contractors through the carpenters. I haven't seen a contract between the carpenters and they negotiate those contracts. But clearly the contractors are paying for it, even if it's routed through the carpenters union.
I've heard that it's up to 80 cents for every hour worked.
Wow. And the people pulling the strings and calling the shots are not the same people out there building houses with hammers and nails and stuff. The real carpenters are doing real work and getting paid rightly for it, and more power to them. I was happy to have received the endorsement of the Carpenters Union myself in the past, and the Sierra Club at the same time. But that is separate from the super PAC support. And I want people to know that endorsements are not the same. And every organization that endorses will offer some kind of support to candidates. Sometimes it's money, Sometimes it's they help people hold signs, knock on doors with you, but they all support. And the money that they give you complies with the campaign spending limits, unless it's a super
Mhm.
PAC. If it's a super
Mhm.
PAC, they don't comply. They can, I mean, the normal support for lieutenant governor is going to be 6,000, and they're giving Mayor Kawakami hundreds of thousands, were because they're a super PAC and they're able to do that, and
Right.
others too. He's the leading uh, beneficiary of the PRP for a better tomorrow. Uh,
So in um, 2012, I think that was the year after Citizens United passed. We had the campaign for Ben Cayetano and other governors who were running, and Cayetano was anti-rail, and PRP spent millions of dollars in negative campaigning against Cayetano.
yeah, I remember clearly. This is not exaggeration. I was in Honolulu driving down the road and hearing this ad on the radio, slamming uh, the character of Governor Ben Cayetano, a former governor, who's a good man in my opinion. I met the man, and I, you know, uh, but just shredding him. And I pulled over the side of the road. I couldn't believe it. I pulled over and turned my radio up and listened to it, and it was just making all kinds of accusations. And later, he took him to court for slandering him, and he won. The court ruled that yes. And it's hard, it's really hard to win against a public figure because public figures have a higher standard. The person doing the negative talking has to know it was wrong, know it was incorrect, and did it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the attitude uh, at that time. And maybe there's different people in charge now, but that was the attitude at that time that it's okay to do it. And
Yeah, so that's how they kind of started. And I think they've had like 3 or 4 different names. So Pacific Resource Partnership is a not 501c3 nonprofit. They have a C4 arm and a non-candidate committee PAC that does independent expenditures. They do not coordinate with any of the candidates. They don't coordinate with the Carpenters Union when they do endorsements. They kind of they'll know which endorsements the carpenters do, and many times those people will also benefit from the PRP promotions, or people that didn't get the endorsement will get the negative side of it. But they've had a couple iterations of names. Be Change Now was the one that was backing Lieutenant Governor or Governor Josh Green and was negative campaigning against Sylvia Luke. They also did negative campaigning against Jill Takuda. And they're very well, I mean, this is publicized and talked about and reported on, the negative aspect of the campaigning and the pervasive overspending millions of dollars into races. I think famously for Maui County, they've spent like record amounts of money on single candidate races for the county council of Maui County, right? So it's well known that the people should know, if you're running for office, you should know that this entity exists and they have a reputation for spending gross amounts of money and also doing negative campaigning. So when you come today to the current list of candidates that are on the receiving end, right now, I think it's only positive um, campaigning that's happening. They're, spending money for people. But in March, when Kawakami announced that he was running, immediately got $500,000 poured into the broadcast airways, radio, TV ads, supporting Kawakami. And I don't think it's stopped since then. The reports come out on Thursday, so we'll see how much money they've spent since the announcement of Mayor Kawakami's race. But we do have electioneering reports that are coming out right now. Those are required for anyone spending money on an election, non-candidate committees, 30 days before the primary. And the amount of money that they've spent has added up into $2 million just for a 12-day period when the ballots dropped.
yeah, and you know, it's frustrating because I talk to people, nice people, good people, who I like normally, will say, Gary, suck it up. This is politics. They got to have money to win. If you don't have the money, you can't win. And so this is just the way it's played. So why don't your guys just raise their money and do the same thing? And it doesn't have to be. We want to change the game. We don't want to say this
Mhm.
is the way the game's played, and so we got to play it. We need to change the game. And in Hawaii, especially in council races and House races and state Senate races too, the community is small enough where we can do it grassroots, knocking on doors and raising small amounts of money. Full disclosure, in the past, I've worked with super PACs, small super PACs, and spent $4,000 to mail something in support of a candidate who I liked. But you want to fight fire with fire. But when you're looking at organizations, they've got $10 million still in the bank, PRP, and for a better tomorrow. And and there's no way that regular people on the street can, and they shouldn't have to. That's why we need
Not
publicly
even
funded
regular
elections.
people, other organizations like other unions, other orgs like the Sierra Club or Local 5 or ILWU who want to encourage their members to vote for the people that they support, that support their needs, their voices are completely drowned out. And, they don't have access, I guess, to the same resources as Pacific Resource Partnership. I guess that's where they get their name. They have a lot of resources. And candidates will say like, "Oh well, it's an independent expenditure committee. I didn't approve." They'll comment like, "Oh, I didn't know that they were going to spend this money on me," but they go so short as to not make a public statement that I denounce this type of spending on campaign elections. I have yet to see a candidate, please correct me if I'm wrong, I have yet to see a candidate who's on the beneficiary end of the current PRP spending that has blatantly said, like, I do not approve of this money. I think that it's, harming our election cycle. Um, you know, and that would go a long way to me. Another piece of this puzzle is that PRP hosts a candidate training program. They recruit candidates that they want to educate and teach how to run for office. It's pretty similar to Kuleana Academy, except Kuleana Academy does not endorse or promote any candidates. We don't support any candidates after they're done. It's purely for educational purposes. And we don't have a union or PAC to spend money on these candidates after they're done. When candidates participate in the PRP campaign, they have to sign something that acknowledges that they're gonna, if they run for office in that year, they're gonna get a in-kind donation for PRP supporting their candidacy through that program. So they know some kind of support is coming, even if it's just an in-kind donation to their campaign, let alone they kind of are signing up for, okay, maybe like I'll get some benefit from this in terms of the PAC spending. So if a candidate says that they don't know that, likely lying, or they're really bad at reading the fine print on things that they're signing, and that's also a huge red flag.
No, I agree. And what you said originally at first, I have never heard a candidate rebut or say that they don't want the money, they don't support super PAC money like this, and they're all quiet. And if anyone out there is watching, and that's if you want support, then you need to make that public statement. If you want support from the people on my side of the aisle, anyway. Yeah, and if you do your homework, okay, I talk about worldview. There's no question that Kuleana Academy has a progressive, aloha aina, people on the planet over corporate profit worldview. That's their bias. That's their values are based there. And there's no question that PRP's values are based on development and about money and about free enterprise and about capitalism and about getting rid of government regulation. And anyone who looks at the program knows that, or should know that. And so align yourself with an organization with those values, and they will support you because they expect that's the values you're going to be fighting for. And you can't have it both ways. Yes, we can work together. Yes, we can have conversations and come to middle ground sometimes. But if you're receiving, and I encourage people out there in the community, uh, if a candidate you like lives down the road from you and you want to support them, and then you find out they're on the PRP for a Better Tomorrow Super PAC list, being supported by them, ask them directly. Give them a call, send them an email saying, I saw you're being supported. How come you're not standing up to say you support publicly funded elections and you're opposed to super PAC spending that exceeds the amount legally allowed by a regular donor? So if an organization gives a council candidate $2,000, that is one thing, because that's a $2,000 cap for a regular donor. But if they're giving the candidate $20,000 or $30,000 by buying ads for them, that's a whole other thing. And before I forget, if you're watching again, you got to look really careful at the television because you can barely see it at the bottom. But read "paid for by," and if it says "paid for by the candidate," it'll have the candidate's name. And the same with the mailer you get in the mail. Look for that fine print. Don't just look at the smile faces and the bullet points. Look at the fine print, and you'll be able to see if it's paid for by a super PAC or if it's paid for by the candidate itself. Because other super PACs are out there, not any of them that I'm aware of nearly as rich or as overwhelmingly involved as the PRP super PAC. But there's other ones out there too.
Civil Beat did cover this a little bit in their Sunshine blog today. They said that the Carpenters Union is spending money hand over fist on the candidates they want to see win the elections. They checked the electioneering's reporting. That's the 30-day window between now and the primary where you have to report what you're spending. And they compared it with 2024 and 2022. They said that we've not seen anything like this before. So $2.5 million on advertising just since July 9th. So we won't know until Thursday how much money it actually has been spent, but that's a huge amount of money being poured into the races, and the benefit, see what comes from it.
And that article at the scroll down to the bottom, and it shows the candidates by name and office they're running for and what island. And so you've got a really clear picture of what candidates are running and what taking the money.
Oh, we got some breaking news in the chat right now. Thank you for our viewer, Michael Golo Jr. They says, news out, judge rules City Council Chair Tommy Waters ineligible to run for a third term.
Whoa.
So Circuit Court Judge James Ashford ruled he's ineligible to run again, that it will violate the charter. I'm sure Waters will appeal this decision, but that's wow.
Whoa. And is it Trevor Ozawa?
Trevor Ozawa is the current forerunning challenger to Tommy Waters, and he's the one that filed the appeal. And they've run against each other before.
Yeah. This is wild. Council Chair Tommy Waters was not on my list of candidates to support for a variety of reasons. And I personally, like a lot of these folks, I like them personally. They're nice guys. But there was just too much humbug going on with that race, and I didn't want to, I'm not qualified, didn't have the time to dig into it. But he's also a beneficiary of Super PAC money from PRP. But I've also heard not so good stuff about Mr. Ozawa. So
given that this appeal has come out in the middle of voting, we're a week into people having their ballots, a number of people have already cast their vote, I would assume that the election will be deemed right? They're going to say that it's not.
Not
If
valid.
voters win or it's not valid, I mean,
I don't know.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
I don't know. I mean, that would be the. I think. I mean, glad you brought it up. I think that would be the right thing to do is do it over, right? And then that people file that didn't file before because they couldn't, didn't envision running against the chair. And yeah, that's crazy. That is wild.
Again, I'm going to remind people that there is other candidates running in this district race. There is Jason Liang, who's a DCA, awesome rank and file
DCA,
government
DCA.
employee, Democratic
Okay.
Socialist. And he was running long before Trevor Ozawa jumped into the race. You know, he's a super humble guy. He's been door knocking, has a strong, base of supporters. He signed the Our Hawaii Pledge not to take corporate PAC money. And this race has just been like overwhelmingly taken over by Ozawa versus Waters. They've already been to court. I think this is the third time that they've run against each other, and it will go to court, and possibly the results would be deemed invalid. um, I hope that voters of this area and the district is just like, both of you guys, we're done. Can you please like make room and breathe for another more voices and new voices? Also, Tara, someone named Tara, I like to call her Mega Barbie, is also running for the race.
And
Do with that what you will.
and this is an opportunity for leadership for Ozawa, quite frankly.
Mhm.
He could stand up and say, we need to do a redo. Hopefully, he does that and supports a special election with a fair election, and he could do that, or he could fight the other way and try to win based on this. But a leader, I think, would say no. The people, half the people probably that have already voted. If you look at the statistics, and their votes now will be invalid because the candidate that they voted for, many of them, is no longer a candidate by the court or whatever.
And Council Chair Waters can also say that any votes cast after this ruling was made,
Right.
if he appeals it and then the appeal is stand, that those votes are also invalid because they voted on this premonition. Yeah. So it is wild times. I didn't think this election was going to get any crazier, but
yeah, we still have 10 days or so. I don't know who's counting. Yeah, about 10 days.
Yeah. There are a lot of votes on the table. Reports coming from the Office of Elections is that turnout is pretty low, pretty slow. There are some shenanigans that are happening right now in terms of like vote by mail. There was a report. This is so crazy. There was a report that at the Kailua post office, there's a drive-up mail drop box where you drop off your mail. There was a sign posted that said, "Do not drop your ballot in the mailbox. Walk it into a worker." I think that's what the sign says. And apparently the sign was up for a couple days. The USPS does not need to accept ballots. The postal workers do not need to accept your ballot. The reporting that I read was very questionable. It said that the USPS was just trying to validate signatures or making sure the signatures were valid or like signed. That is not their job. And that sounds questionable to me. Were they checking signatures against an ID? Were they asking people to show their ID with a signature? That also adds red flags to me. The Office of Elections, in my opinion, is not taking this seriously enough. That I think it's really crazy that happened. And I wonder if that was on any other post offices. And the fact that it was up for a couple days really makes me nervous. I've just been suggesting people to drop it off in all of the drop boxes. Those are checked every single day. They're scanned in. If you're signed up for ballot tracks, when your ballot was accepted, and they can verify your signature right there. If it was accepted, or if it wasn't, then you still have time to request a replacement ballot or vote in person. Voting in person in some locations started today, Monday. Other locations are going to start on Saturday. So please, 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 please vote. There are so many opportunities from the top of the ticket with our friend Senator Keokolole challenging Ed Case, another friend, Representative Albalati, challenging for lieutenant governor seat. Um, let's talk about Rep Belati for a little
Sure.
while. You know, the governor, was on the news the other day, all but endorsed Kawakami in his statements, saying that he wanted someone that was going to work with him, and inaccurately stating that Rep Belati was against everything that he does. I don't think that that's an accurate portrayal of her viewpoints. I think she's definitely a watchdog, and she will question, and she'll not just be, you know, a yes man or yes woman in those terms. So for that alone, I think she gets my vote, because I think that at this time right now, we do need a lieutenant governor who's kind of independent and making sure that things are, um, you know, operating in some ways.
Yeah, I'm also strongly supporting Rep Belati. Uh, I watched a news interview, a replay. Claudette and I sat and watched it yesterday, and there was one moment that stuck with me. It was one of these lightning rounds, and they asked a short question, and they said, "What political figure in Hawaii politics do you admire the most?" or something like that. And without hesitation, Rep Belati said Patsy Mink. And without hesitation, Mayor Kawakami said Dan Inouye. And to me, that says that's enough for me. Patsy Mink, I had the honor of meeting with her and my family for dinner. Kelly Rose was there, my daughter was there, and know her a little bit. And I've met Senator Inouye also in the past. But Patsy Mink, her legacy is fighting and working for women and girls and the underserved and justice. She was a champion. And Senator Inouye is a hero, a war hero, and a great man also. But his claim to fame, besides being a war hero, is bringing home the bacon, bringing home money for military spending. And I'm looking, we need the Patsy Minks of the world right now to step up. And Representative Belati, I think, can do it. She's fearless. She knows when it's time to work together and hold hands, and she knows when it's time to call out injustice. None of us are perfect. I'm not. You're not. Belati's not. None of us are. But she's the person we need at this particular time. She's proven that. She stood up and demanded an investigation on this bribery and corruption. She fought hard to kill the Citizens United, pass that bill. Yeah, that's who I'm supporting also.
Yeah. And, you know, someone else in the comments asked, are we going to talk about the candidates for governor? I don't really know any of the other candidates for governor besides Governor Green. And if that's probably a flaw of by design, or, you know, money in politics, campaign spending, no other candidate can kind of, you know, jump above the fray. We don't have any seriously known challengers. So again, I think voting for Belati is kind of like a anti-green vote, or like the vote I wish I could cast if I was able to vote for someone other than Governor Green for
Yeah.
governor. You know, if we had time to research all of the candidates that are running for all of the races, I would love to, but because there's so many and so few have the capacity to really run serious, credible campaigns, it's sometimes unfortunately not in the budget of time and conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree. I did look into superficially looking at websites and whatnot, the other candidates running, and couldn't find anyone that I felt I wanted to get involved in, or felt had a chance to win. Governor Green has done some good stuff, you know, but he's fallen far short on many issues important to me. Energy, his blind pursuit of liquid natural gas, LNG, in my opinion, is bad. I want a governor who realizes that climate change is an existential threat, and we need to get off of oil, period. And the faster we do
Mm-hmm.
that, the better. And the same with
Yeah.
energy and food self-sufficiency. So I'm frankly leaving my ballot blank for that. And as the article in Civil Beat also talked about, what nobody's running against him, no major figure. And I talked to people about this before the filing deadline. And the universal theme, from when I talked to someone who might have some credibility, who might have a chance to win, they said, Gary, did you see what they did to Ben Cayetano?
Mm-hmm.
And so people are afraid of the money and putting their family and their friends and their business through that having been smeared by a super PAC. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's, again, another negative aspect of money in politics. In the Senate,
Yeah.
I'm going to give a shout out to Nani Brown. Nani Brown is working really, really hard out there in Wahiwa, Mililani, running against arguably the most powerful man in the Senate, Senator Dela Cruz, the chairman of Ways and Means, who
Mm-hmm.
has $1.2 million or something crazy in the bank. Uh, yeah, but
What do you do? What do you do with that kind of money? What
but
what can you do with that kind of money?
you know, when no one runs against you, uh, you give it to your friends. You buy 2 tickets to a fundraiser and give favored candidates $2,000 here, $2,000 there. You hire consultants who are your friends. I'm not saying, I haven't looked at his campaign spending reports, but that if you look at the news, what's coming out now about other campaign investigations, there are money's being spent in all kinds of wild ways. Uh, there's no, it's legitimate to hire somebody to an accountant to do your campaign spending reports. That's legitimate.
Highly recommend to
Yes,
do that.
and it's legitimate to hire a media consultant to do your social media, and it's legitimate to hire some of this stuff. But I think what we're finding as we look closer at the record, there's a lot of abuse. What's that?
Yeah. One of the reports that came out when we had Sylvia Luke's campaign spending records kind of like delved in, her campaign manager or campaign treasurer was writing checks to himself for his consulting fees. And that's a big no no. Um, and just all these little things that come up, and Senator Dela Cruz, when we were talking about specifically the campaign spending commission funding them and the pay to play contractor stuff, he was saying like, all my campaign treasurer is a volunteer and all of our campaign treasurers are just volunteers. And he's hired Tony Baldemero to do his books now. So I'm happy to say that he definitely is going to walk back on those allegations or those sentiments that you should just have a friend do your books because it's really much better to hire a professional.
Yeah, yeah, much better. And Tony Baldemero, I know. Uh, I don't know. I might have missed what you said. Tony Baldemero, I know from working with over the years, and found him to be really good to work with, found him to be professional. And now he's retired from the Campaign Spending Commission and doing private consulting work. And not only has Senator Dela Cruz hired him, but Mayor Kawakami has hired him for his campaign, and Senate President Ron Kochi has hired him. And just glancing at that report, it seems like there's a lot of corrections and updates, money returned from overpayments for donations and that kind of thing, which looks like it's coming from Mr. Baldemero taking a close look at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to close in a minute, but I want people to realize how important their vote is. We have a half a dozen or so state senators, seats, challengers running for office. Jordan Nakamura is running. A good guy,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to support him. Uh,
He's out there knocking on doors every day. He's one of the candidates in that race that have pledged our Hawaii pledge not to take corporate money. There's a couple other candidates who are also not taking corporate money. Um, and there is one, Trisha Nakamatsu. Ooh, I don't know what. Um, she's
she's on the PRP list.
the
Yeah,
PRP list. Trisha Nakamatsu
yeah, yeah. She's
is
an
on.
attorney, uh, and she's receiving funding support legally, but still generous funding support from Pacific Research Partnership's Super PAC.
Mhm.
Christine McPherson, we talked about earlier, running for the state senate. Nani Brown running for the state senate. On the Big Island, we have Tanya running for the state senate. We're only talking about new challengers. We're not really talking about who we like and who we don't like, who are incumbents.
Well, I think it is interesting to talk about since we have lost Senator Rhodes. Who is going to be the good government champion in the Senate? I don't see any of the current um, incumbents really ready or have been, really ready or willing. People have said it might be Senator McKelvey, it could be Senator Lee. If we're so lucky to have Jordan Nakamura win or Nani Brown, I guarantee you that they will be champions along with Christine McPherson. But in terms of people that are already in that have seniority to get that judiciary chairmanship to fight for our reforms, I'm nervous.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going to happen.
I'm nervous too.
Similar to the House side too, um, David Tarnas is an ally in many ways. Can be somewhat of a difficult personality to work with. He doesn't go as far as I would like for him to go in this fighting for campaign finance reform. But losing Rep Bellotti, um, that is one of the stronger voices that we had in the House for this kind of reform. I know we have, Representative Yomoto, of course, Representative Hussey, but who is going to rise to the top and be that leader in the good government caucus? I don't know.
Yeah, and one voice can make a difference in the Senate,
Mm-hmm.
one and the House and on the council. Someone who's willing to speak out, stand up, do their homework, and get a reputation for that. Then the body starts to realize, well, we better start listening to this person, otherwise, they're going to keep shining a light. And so I think we work on that. I want to give a shout out. What's Tanya's last name?
Anastasian.
Okay. Uh, her and Uncle Bobby running for the county council on Maui.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them were plaintiffs in a lawsuit against the state house for having secret meetings, and they
Mm-hmm.
won. Okay, so that says something about those two people. They're willing to go to court and expose themselves to all that means, right? To public scrutiny, to possible financial impacts. But they did it. They got paid nothing for it, but they went to court. And they won. And I expect them to do the same thing in public office. They've already proven that's who they are. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's huge. In the House, we talked about the House already. Nadia Alves, District 28. We talked about
District 19. We have Janelle Fujinaka, District 26. We have Jake Morrow, District 21. Keikoa Kealoha, District 30. That's a very winnable seat. He would be fabulous.
and they've all spoken up loudly and publicly about getting money out of politics. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then looking forward to the general, we have Kalehua and Paele running. That very much also could definitely win and join, um, you know, And then people have said, I was in a conversation earlier today, they're like, oh, well, they're just going to be rejected to Siberia. But if there's 5 of them there, that's a faction. That's no longer
That's right.
Siberia, if they're willing to work together.
And I've learned you can work from Siberia also. You can have an even louder voice and shine an even
Mm-hmm.
brighter light when you're in Siberia because you got nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then let's say we talked about Christina Holt already.
Mm-hmm.
And was there any other House members? I think we got it.
Keone Kuoha running against or for the seat that Kyle Yamashita currently has.
Okay. And there's other incumbents. We just not have time to run through the whole list today, but there are incumbents that are good people that are holding good space that are
Yeah.
there as well. And I just want to emphasize again, no one's paying either one of us to say this. These
No.
are our personal choices. They don't represent an organization. They're basically, if we live in the district, but we do know most of these people. We've spoken to them at length. We've looked at their history. We've been in the room with them, and we wouldn't be mentioning their name if we didn't feel comfortable and confident of their ability.
Oh, one thing I did want to talk about. I was in the SCC meeting of the Democratic Party of Hawaii, and the news broke about the indictment on Friday, and in many group chats with other Democrats who are on the governing body of the SCC State Central Committee, we all recognize the very important need for the party to stand up and speak out about these charges and about our reputation as a party as being the party of corruption. And we cannot deny it because all of these people that have been implicated are Democrats. And whether we think that they represent the party in any way, they are members of our party, and we are the ruling party of the Hawaii state government. We need to step up and speak up about this. So we helped draft a statement that was, speaking up and saying that we don't stand for this and that this doesn't represent party values, that these charges are serious, and we need to be really serious in the next coming weeks and the next year fighting for legislative reform to get pay to play clean elections. And I'm happy to say that with this a little bit of wordsmithing, we were able to pass a really pretty strong statement, and still waiting for that statement to be published. But I was really happy to see that party leadership was very much in agreement that we have to say something.
It's good to hear. It's good to hear. And we got to schedule something after the primary, maybe, about the importance of being involved in your party, regardless of what party it is. I mean, we're both involved in the Democratic Party, but active party membership, showing up and sharing your voice and being part of the team can make a difference. Uh, Let me look at my notes real quick. Like we talked about disclosure, we disclosed already. You can go to garyhooser.blog and read some of my stuff. Facebook. I encourage you to look at both Ari and our Facebook pages and follow us or friend us or share and like. The more you share and like, the more exposure the messages have, and it's important. We talked about the indictments. I want to repeat the fact that people are innocent until proven guilty. And some of this, maybe a lot of it, is ugly and smells, but it may not be illegal. It may just be campaign donations that are bundled or misaccounted for, whatever. We talked about Pacific Resource Partnership. We talked about, on one hand, with the corruption indictments, we're talking about $35,000 in a paper bag. And on the other hand, we're talking about $12 million and special interest funds. And people seem more concerned about the 35,000. And frankly, I'm more
Yeah.
concerned about the 12 million that super PACs like PRPs is putting out. That's more corrupting.
Mhm.
Again, it's not personal. We all have different worldviews. Some stuff we can agree to disagree on, but some stuff it's just a different point of view. If candidates want uh, forgiveness, or if they want to be not labeled as a friend of big money, then they need to say out loud that they don't support it. They need to say out
Mhm.
loud that they support publicly funded elections and campaign finance reform and getting big money, special interest money, and super PAC money out of elections. And
Mhm.
then they can be excused maybe if they do someone does a mailer for them, but they need to say out loud
Mhm.
that they don't support it. That's the issue of the day. It's big money in politics.
Yeah.
Oh,
I just had an email exchange with my elected official, Lisa Martin, and she was saying, like she doesn't actively fundraise, that she doesn't take, you know, bribes from anyone. Um, the only fundraising that she does is that she lets she lets her friends add her name to their fundraisers. So if they're having like a group fundraiser for their faction, she allows them to add her name to it so that she gets donations. And I looked at her donations, and it's a lot of realtors, Realtor Pack. There's some good organizations. She's endorsed by Sierra Club. She's endorsed by Local 5, Patsy Mink Foundation. All of these organizations I very much support. But she also takes corporate lobbyist money. And, by any name, corporate lobbyist is just a name, and they could be a nice guy. And, they don't maybe not ask her for anything, but they're getting paid to donate to her by the tobacco industry, by the private prison industrial complex. So that answer was less than sufficient for me when I think about people that I want representing us. Say no to corporate interests, include corporate lobbyists. And that is hard to understand and comprehend for some people because it just says like, lobbyists for whatever, and you look up the organization that they work for, like Capital Consultants or Sanha Government Strategies, and they represent nonprofits, they represent environmental interests, they represent good organizations, but then they're also paid for. They have clients that hide their names, like Altira, huge donator, they represent Philip Morris, and that's just it. That's a non-starter for me.
from a political smart point of view, I mean, I would think that someone running for office would think a little bit more about this. I would hope they would. And they get a donation from some company that represents tobacco or whatever, and they would just send them back a note saying, it's probably better if I don't take that. I still be fair, still going to be open, but I can't take your money because it's going to look bad. And just return it. And why they don't do this, I don't know. It's better to err on the side of integrity and ethics and openness,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion. Uh, but we'll see how it goes. The election's coming up. I want to thank all the candidates who are running, uh, even those I don't agree with. I think it's good to have our democracy work and people step up and run and put their names out there. It's
Yeah.
hard sometimes. What the work you and I do, people expect us to be open and honest, and we are open and honest. But it means choosing who we prefer to vote for openly,
Mm-hmm.
and that means the other side is someone we're not going to vote for, and we have to explain why. And it's not meant to
Yeah.
be personal, but it always probably is taken that way.
Mm.
And there's plenty of good people. I tell people I wouldn't. I have a little brother I wouldn't vote for. I love him dearly. He could coach my kids' soccer team. He could take care of my house and my dog, but I would never ever vote for the guy. Uh, and it's just that's the way the world works. I guess. And he keeps trying to convince me, and I keep trying to convince him. Anyway, I probably need to get going here. It's been a
All right.
great hour and 20 some minutes. Are you, Juliet? Uh, I appreciate what you bring to the table and your insight and your knowledge and your honesty and activity. Uh,
Thank you, Gary.
you're the future.
Let's let's connect next week, and we'll have some more solid reporting from the Campaign Spending Commission on exactly how much money PRP and others entities are spending in our elections.
Sounds good.